My wife said, "Let's try an open marriage. You'll handle it." But the moment I found someone better, she cried to end it. Too late, because I'm the one who walked away. I never imagined I'd be sitting here pouring my heart out to the internet. But sometimes life throws you into situations so surreal, so unexpected, that you have no choice but to let it all out. My wife, Jenna, and I had been together for over a decade, 12 long years of shared dreams, fights, laughs, struggles, and growth. We first met in college in one of those movie-style meet cuties where you accidentally bump into someone, papers flying everywhere, and somehow that moment sparks a connection that blossoms into something real. We fell hard, stayed together through the chaos of our 20s, and finally tied the knot right before we both turned 30. For years, it felt like we had built something solid, something rooted in real partnership. Not perfect, but strong. Of course, we had our share of stress from work, occasional family tensions, and the typical disagreements about bills or who was supposed to clean the kitchen, but none of it ever felt like it would break us. At least, that's what I believed. Then everything started to shift, and it wasn't abrupt, which somehow made it worse. It was subtle at first, a podcast here, a forum discussion there. Jenna became deeply immersed in the world of personal development, self-discovery, and online communities promoting modern love. I cheered her on, thought she was just evolving, trying to become the best version of herself. I had no idea that what she was really doing was rewriting the entire structure of our marriage in her head. She began dropping philosophical bombs over dinner like, "Do you ever think humans were meant to be monogamous?" Or late-night ramblings about how attraction doesn't just die after commitment. I took it as curiosity, as open dialogue. I had no clue she was setting the stage for a decision that would eventually break us apart. One night, without any warning or even a hint of lead-up, Jenna sat me down at the kitchen table, the very table where we'd planned vacations, laughed until we cried, and built our life together, and uttered the words that felt like a sledgehammer to my chest. "I want to try an open marriage." I couldn't even process it at first. I asked her why, and her explanation was a tangled web of personal growth, exploration, and keeping things fresh. She reassured me it had nothing to do with me, that I was enough, that this was about something bigger than either of us. But all I heard was that the life we'd built wasn't enough anymore. I felt completely blindsided, like the person I thought I knew had been replaced by a stranger with new rules and a new playbook. Still, I didn't say no right away. I asked for time. I barely slept for days, confided in 2 friends. One said to walk away immediately. The other said it might work if there were clear rules. Against everything my gut was screaming, I said yes. I agreed to it, because deep down, I was terrified that refusing would mean losing her entirely. We drafted boundaries, a pathetic attempt at control in a situation that already felt unraveling. No bringing anyone home. Full transparency. Prioritize each other no matter what. She called it the Open Marriage Starter Pack. And almost immediately, Jenna was a different person. She was giddy, alive, dressing up more, smiling at her phone all the time, staying out late and claiming it was just girls' night or book club. I tried not to spiral. I wanted to believe this was just her exploring something temporary, something that would eventually burn out. But watching the woman you love come home radiating joy from conversations and connections that didn't involve you, it's a kind of pain that's hard to explain. And so I tried. I downloaded dating apps. I went on coffee dates that felt forced. Nothing clicked. Until I met Emily. Emily was unlike anyone I'd ever met. Calm, kind, centered. She had this aura about her that made me feel safe. Like I didn't have to prove anything. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. The simplicity of small-town life, the ridiculousness of dating as adults, favorite bands, childhood stories. There were no games, no agendas. Just 2 people connecting in a way that felt effortless. Before I knew it, I was seeing her a few times a week. And the weird thing was, I didn't feel guilty. Because for the first time in a long time, I was happy. Jenna noticed. Of course she did. The same woman who once encouraged me to explore was now asking, "Who are you seeing?" in a voice that tried so hard to sound nonchalant but failed miserably. I told her the truth. Emily's name, who she was, how often we saw each other. And that's when the cracks in Jenna's armor began to show. Suddenly she wanted to spend more time with me. She cooked dinner again, texted me randomly throughout the day, something she hadn't done in months. She started canceling her own plans, complaining that the men she'd met were immature or too much work. It was clear, the spark that once lit her up was gone. And I couldn't help but wonder if that spark had ever really been about connection, or just the thrill of something new. Meanwhile, Emily became a constant in my life. Calm, stable, real. She wasn't trying to escape anything or rediscover herself through others. She just wanted me, the actual me. And that realization made every conversation with Jenna feel like a performance. One night, Jenna cooked her signature chicken parmesan, something she hadn't made since before the open marriage began. As we ate, she finally admitted it. I don't think this open thing is working. I asked her if she wanted to close it, and she said yes, eyes brimming with uncertainty. But by then, something inside me had shifted too. I wasn't the same man who had agreed out of fear. I wasn't even the same man she'd married. I asked her point blank, "Do you miss me, or do you just miss being the center of my world?" Her silence said everything. Eventually she whispered, "Both." And I believed her, not because I wanted to, but because I knew that regret doesn't always come from malice. Sometimes people just don't think things through until it's too late. And even though a part of me will always care for Jenna, I couldn't ignore what I'd found with Emily. I had discovered a love that wasn't conditional, that wasn't built on rules and loopholes. It was built on presence, respect, and real connection. A week later, Jenna sat me down again, no walls, no games, just her. She admitted she was wrong, that she'd been chasing something she couldn't even name, hoping it would fix an internal void. And I knew she was telling the truth. But I also knew I couldn't go back. Not because I didn't love her anymore, but because I loved myself enough now to know what I deserved. I deserved more than a relationship held together by guilt and fear. I deserved what I had found. Something steady, something honest. She asked me if there was still a chance, if any part of me wanted to try again. And as much as I wanted to say yes for old time's sake, I couldn't. I told her that while I would always care, I couldn't unsee what had been seen or unfeel what I now knew was possible. She nodded through her tears, and I walked away. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted revenge, but because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave when you finally know your worth. The days that followed felt strange, not because I had doubts about the decision I made, but because for the first time in over a decade, I was moving through life without the familiar weight of Jenna's presence. It was like a muscle I had forgotten I was using had finally relaxed. There were moments, of course, where I looked at old photos or stumbled upon an inside joke in my text threads, and a wave of nostalgia would hit me so hard I had to sit down. But even in those moments, I didn't regret walking away. I regretted that it had come to this, yes. I regretted that the love we once shared had been put through a grinder of ego, experiments, and emotional risk. But I didn't regret choosing myself. Emily never asked for more than I could give. She didn't push, didn't pressure me to move faster than I was ready. She knew I was still healing. Not from a breakup, but from the shattering of a reality I had invested years into building. And that kind of patience, that kind of emotional maturity, it's rare. We took our time, slowly merging our lives bit by bit, learning each other's patterns, quirks, and wounds. With Emily, I never felt like I had to perform. I could be tired. I could be quiet. I could be me. And that me, the version who had forgotten what it felt like to be chosen without conditions, started to come back to life. Jenna still reached out occasionally. A random text here, a link to a song we used to love there. I never blocked her. I didn't feel anger, just distance. She was a chapter that had ended, not with a slammed door, but with a quiet realization that the story was done. Once, she texted me a photo of our old apartment, the one we had decorated with care, argued over paint colors in, and shared countless meals in. "Miss this sometimes," she wrote. I didn't respond, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because there was nothing left to say. We both knew that what we missed wasn't the apartment. It was the idea of what we thought we had. Months passed, and the guilt I thought would haunt me for leaving never really arrived. Instead, there was this subtle, steady peace that settled into my bones. I had chosen myself not out of selfishness, but out of self-preservation. And that decision had given me room to grow, to heal, and to rediscover a kind of joy I thought I'd lost for good. I'd always thought love was about holding on, pushing through the hard stuff, proving you could endure anything. But sometimes, real love is knowing when to let go, when to accept that growth doesn't always happen side by side. Sometimes it happens apart. I still think about Jenna occasionally, not in a way that makes me sad, but in a way that makes me grateful. She showed me what happens when communication dies and ego takes the wheel. She taught me that love, no matter how strong, can't survive if it's replaced by scorekeeping and power plays. I hope she finds what she's looking for.
I truly do.
I hope one day she stops trying to find herself in others and starts looking inward instead. Because despite everything, I don't wish her misery. I just wish her growth. As for me, I'm still learning. Still navigating what a healthy relationship looks like after years of emotional compromise. But with Emily, it's different. It's honest. It's steady. It's quiet in the best way. And every day, I wake up knowing I'm exactly where I need to be. Not in a fantasy or a perfect love story, but in something real, something earned, something that feels like home. So to anyone out there reading this, if you're in a relationship that feels more like a job than a joy, if you're walking on eggshells to keep the peace, if you're sacrificing pieces of yourself just to keep someone else happy, let me be clear. That's not love. That's fear wearing a mask. And you deserve more than that. You deserve a love that doesn't require a contract or a point system. You deserve a love that chooses you every single day. Not because it has to, but because it wants to. Thank you for listening to my story. It's not perfect. It's not wrapped in a bow with a happily ever after. But it's real. And sometimes, that's the bravest thing you can share. If this resonated with you even a little, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more stories to tell, stories about rebuilding, rediscovery, and the quiet power of choosing yourself.